Hello, my dear students, and welcome back. It's so good to see you all here. I know exams are right around the corner and things might be getting a little bit stressful.
But you know what? Don't you worry one bit. Your favorite tutor is here, and we are going to make this chapter, The Making of a Global World, feel absolutely simple. Trust me on this.
So, what's our plan? First, we'll see that globalization is not a new thing at all. It's the original gangster. Then we'll see how the world kind of shrunk. After that, we'll dive into the huge changes of the 19th century, touch upon the drama of wars and economics, and then finish with a super quick revision for your exams. Ready? Let's begin. Okay, first up, when we hear globalization, we think of the internet, right? Or airplanes. Well, guess what? The world has been connected for thousands of years. So let's jump in our time machine and go way, way back.
I want you to think of the Silk routes as the ancient world's internet. I'm serious. It wasn't just one road, but this huge, amazing network connecting Asia with Europe and North Africa. This was the original information and goods superhighway.
So what was moving along these routes? Oh, so much more than just silk. Of course, you had Chinese silk and our famous Indian spices and pottery. But you also had money, gold and silver traveling from Europe to Asia. And what's really cool, ideas. Religions like Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam spread along these very paths. And yeah, something not so great also tagged along for the ride, germs and diseases. It was a complete exchange, you see.
Now, let's move forward a bit and see how things started to speed up. The world actually began to feel smaller, and it was because of three main things: food, conquest, and disease. These three really did change the world map forever. Let's talk about food first. Did you have any idea that the potato, the aloo in our samosas, is not actually from India? Or that the tomatoes and chilies that make our curries so tasty all came from the Americas? It's true. And here's a fun fact. Many believe that noodles traveled from China and became what we now know as Italian spaghetti. Food has always been a world traveler. Okay, time for a quick question. When the Spanish set out to conquer America, they had guns, they had horses, but what do you think was their most powerful, their deadliest secret weapon? Think about it for a second. It wasn't their swords or cannons. It was germs. Specifically, diseases like smallpox. You see, the people living in America had been isolated for centuries, so they had absolutely no immunity. This disease spread like wildfire and wiped out entire populations, which made it so much easier for the Spanish to conquer them. A very important point to remember for your exam: germs were more powerful than guns. All right, Butcho, let's jump forward to the 19th century. Now, this period, it was a time of massive change in the world economy. And the easiest way to understand it is to think of three big flows. Ready? The first flow is the flow of goods, which is just a fancy word for trade. We're talking about things like cloth from India or wheat from America being shipped all the way to Britain. World trade during this time multiplied by almost 40 times. Can you even imagine that? The second flow was the flow of people. This is migration. Millions of people left their homes searching for a better life. For instance, about 50 million people, that's 5 crore people, left Europe to go to America and Australia to work on farms and in new factories. And the third flow was the flow of money, or capital. Big financial centers like London were investing money across the globe to build things like railways and develop mines. So you see, these three flows, goods, people, and money, were all interconnected, and they completely changed the world. Now, speaking of this era, we have to talk about the corn laws in Britain. These were basically laws that blocked cheaper corn from being imported. This kept food prices really high, which was great for the rich landowners, but awful for all the people living in cities who needed cheap food to survive. Naturally, this led to huge protests. So what happened? Well, the government finally gave in and scrapped the corn laws. Suddenly, cheap food started flooding in from America and Australia. British farmers just couldn't compete. Farms were abandoned, and lakhs of people lost their jobs and were forced to migrate to find work. It just goes to show how one decision in one country can create ripples across the whole world. And this leads us to a very sad and dark part of our own history: indentured labor. After slavery was abolished, the big plantation owners still needed cheap workers. So they tricked poor people from India, from places like Bihar and UP, with false promises of jobs. They were sent thousands of miles away to the Caribbean islands or Fiji to work in horrible conditions. It was rightly called a new system of slavery. Okay, now let's buckle up because we're heading into the 20th century roller coaster.
We're talking about world wars, a huge economic boom, and then a massive crash. It was a time of pure drama.
The first half of the 20th century was a story of two extremes. First, you had the Roaring '20s in America. Henry Ford's assembly line was making cars so cheap that ordinary people could buy them, which created tons of jobs. It was a time of prosperity. But that boom was followed by a terrible bust, the Great Depression. It started in 1929. Stock market crashed, banks failed, and millions of people lost everything. The world went from a massive high to a crushing low.
So how did this global crash affect India? Terribly. We were exporting a lot of agricultural goods at the time. When demand from other countries just vanished, the prices for our products crashed. This quote from a Bengali jute farmer at the time says it all. They were told to grow more jute for greater cash, but the falling prices meant that their hopes get dashed as they fell deeper and deeper into debt. It was a truly heartbreaking time for Indian farmers.
Okay, Bacho, we're in the final stretch now. It's time for your exam super revision. Let's lock in these key concepts so you can write the perfect answers. Are you ready? Let's do a quick fire round.
First question, and this is a very common one. What were the Corn Laws and why were they abolished?
And the answer is super simple. Here are the 3 points you need to remember. 1. There were laws in Britain that restricted imported corn to protect rich landowners. 2. They were abolished because of pressure from industrialists and city dwellers who wanted cheaper food. And 3. The result was that Britain began importing food and its own farmers had to migrate to find work. Easy peasy.
Okay, next one. Another super important question. What were the Bretton Woods institutions?
Here's what you need to know. After the massive destruction of World War II, all the world leaders met at a place called Bretton Woods. They wanted to create a system to keep the world's economy stable. And this meeting created two twins, the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. Their main job was to manage the global economy and help rebuild countries so that a disaster like the Great Depression would never happen again. Got it? Perfect.
And just like that, you did it! See? I told you it would be easy. This entire chapter is now completely sorted in your mind. You are all champions.
Before you go, if this helped you out, please hit that like button and share it with all your friends. And let me know in the comments which chapter you want me to cover next. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. All the very best for your exams. I know you're going to do great. Bye-bye.